And welcome back to Tech Tuesday. Okay, so I got a lot of questions about how I prep the substrates that I work on. So I thought I'd kind of revisit this. A little while ago on Tech Tuesday, I talked about streamlining and the Autoborne Sealer that I use. So this is kind of a revisit of that, but it's more prep than the other one was, I think. So what I do is, no matter what I paint on, whether it's on the UPO paper, which is a polypropylene paper, or steel, or ampersand, or aluminum, it doesn't matter. What I end up doing is I end up using Autoborne Sealer on that. It's just a great ground coat for whatever I'm really working on, and it gives me the same feel no matter what it is that I'm working on. So whether it's on prepared artboard or the synthetic paper or steel or aluminum, all of these surfaces when I go to paint on them feel exactly the same way to me, and that's great. That's great. So I can address a lot of different things as far as substrate goes, but not have it affect the way that I paint. The example is if you're a painter, and in one instance you're required to use like a real heavy watercolor paper, and then in the other instance you're required to use this polypropylene, which is very, very smooth. Those two substrates, those two papers essentially feel completely different when you paint on them. It just has a different feel. So this way, by using the Autoborne Sealer, you can level the playing field, and it'll always give you the same surface. So that's why I do it. So what I thought I'd do today is just kind of show you the prep on the surfaces and how easy it is and how I get all the surfaces the same way. So let's jump to it. Okay, so Autoborne Sealer comes, it's not quite ready to spray. They recommend that you reduce this 10% per volume. It's designed to be sprayed through a 1.2 to 1.4 sized nozzle on a spray gun. That gives you the best results. It gives you the correct coverage that they recommend and sprays really, really nicely. You can, if you don't want to make the investment in a big spray gun and the compressor that will run that, you can run this out of a smaller gun. It's not recommended for use with an airbrush. Those nozzles are too small. Even like a 0.5 is too small for this. You have to over reduce this stuff too much to really have it work the way it's intended. So what you can do is, though, you can get a small spray gun or a small trigger airbrush like the Grex Tritium. This one has a 0.7. This is pushing it, but you can still use something like this to spray the base coat. Ideally, what I use is a 1.0 spray gun, a little mini spray gun, and that works out really, really well. That allows you to get, again, a nice thick coat on this, or the recommended thickness of coat on this. So what happens is, as soon as I spray it, it's very easy to spray. You wait about 10 to 15 minutes per coat. I usually put on about 4 coats on whatever I'm working on, and that gives me a thick enough coat to do what I need to do. Sometimes what will happen is, though, you'll get little nibs. I strain this, but sometimes things get through in the dust, dust or little, dried paint chunks or whatever. What I do really simply, this stuff sands very, very well. So I use 1,000 grit sandpaper and a very, very used Scotch-Brite pad. This originally was 800 grit, but I've used it so much it's probably like 2,000 grit now. So you could use just 2,000 paper or higher for the last step, but this just as easy. And like I said, I've used this so much it's become like the perfect grit. But the first step is to get any of the larger bits of whatever, dust or paint that kind of got stuck in it. So what I do is I just really lightly kind of skim over the surface with an old used X-Acto blade. And what happens is that blade will get caught on any of the little paint nibs and just kind of scratch them off, pick them off. It's really, really light touch, because if I really dig down, I'll just dig through it like a scratch board. Obviously don't want to do that. So just really light touch, just kind of run over the whole thing, and the blade will automatically get caught on any of the little nibs. Some of them I can't even see, but you can feel them all. Once I run over that and get them all done, and that one came out nice, I'll grab the 1,000 grit, and I use these pads just because, the areas I'm working on are small, and these foam pads are really convenient to sand with. They don't kink or fold or anything. So I just run over the whole surface with this 1,000 grit. like that. And this stuff powders really, really well. So even in 1,000 grit paper, so what I do is my grubby jeans on. If I wipe that on my jeans a couple times, all that powder comes right off. It cleans right out of the sandpaper, which is amazing. So you would think anything, this is water-based, this sealer. You would think anything water-based would be real gummy and roll up on the paper or get stuck in, little blobs, but it doesn't. It just powders really, really nicely. After I'm done with the 1,000 grit, I take the next grit, whatever you choose to use. And again, you could paint on this with 1,000 grit scratches just like this, and it would be amazing. Those 1,000 grit scratches are really, really tiny. And if you paint larger, you'd never see them. But since I paint smaller, I really like a really, really smooth surface so you don't see those. They don't distract from the painting. So that's why I take it this next step. And just kind of go over the whole thing again. And this Scotch-Brite pad will knock down any of the sanding scratches that are left. And what I'm left with is a surface that is really, really incredibly smooth, but yet this will still really take paint very well. The paint almost, I want to say absorb, but it's not quite that dramatic. But the paint doesn't skid across it like you would think it would on something so smooth. You would think if you hit this with paint now, it would immediately spiderweb because it's so smooth like plastic. But it's not like that. It will stay where you put it because it has some absorption quality to it. It's also extremely strong. I can tape on this. I can scratch through it because again it's very powdery, or it powders when you sand it. So I can scratch through it, but you'd have to work hard to do that. So it's very, very, very strong and very flexible. So it just works really, really well. And again, we started with just a blank piece of polypropylene, which is white. So this is base coat sealer gray. The sealers come in different colors, and you can do whatever you want with them. This here is base coat sealer white. I added a little bit of yellow ochre to it and a little bit of base coat sealer dark or black, and that gave me the colored ground for the other painting that I was working on. So you can do all kinds of colored grounds as well. It just works really, really well. So hopefully that answers the question on how I prep all the panels that I do, or anything I do. I'll spray this on anything. And if I didn't address any of the questions that you might have already sent me, just drop them in the comments below on this post, and then I'll make sure I get to them. If you also have any ideas for any other Tech Tuesdays, drop those in the comments too, because I love those. It helps me kind of address some of the things that you guys and girls have going on, and if I can help, that's what I want. So there you go. All right, so for Steve Leahy and Tech Tuesday and his brand new prepped Yupo paper, I will catch you guys on the next one. Thanks a lot.